How did World War II change the world forever? It wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow collapse of order. Imagine a world where economic despair, political anger, and wounded pride were spreading like a virus. Old empires were weakening, and extreme ideologies promised strength and revenge. The world was already shifting on its axis before the first shot was even fired. The war then reshaped borders and power in ways no one had ever seen. Europe, once the center of the world, lost its dominance. From the ashes to new giants emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. This seismic shift created a new global power dynamic that would define the rest of history. But the cost was unimaginable. Entire cities were reduced to ash and silence. This was modern warfare in its most destructive form. Air raids, tanks, and total war erased the line between soldier and civilian. Human life became a number in a strategic calculation on a scale that still shocks us today. Millions of ordinary people were swept into the vortex. Farmers became soldiers, workers became targets, and families became refugees. Societies had to mobilize every single person and resource. No one was left untouched. Amidst the chaos, technology advanced faster than ever before. Radar, jet engines, rockets, and the terrifying birth of nuclear science reshaped the future. Innovation, driven by the desperate need for survival, transformed industry, medicine, and how we communicate. The modern technological world we live in was forged in the immense pressure of this conflict, but the war also revealed the darkest depths of human cruelty. The Holocaust, a systematic genocide, showed how twisted ideology could completely erase morality. The world was forced to witness evil carried out not just by monsters, but through cold bureaucracy and obedience. This horror forever changed our understanding of crimes against humanity. After the devastation, a powerful realization dawned on the world. Peace required cooperation. To prevent another global catastrophe, the United Nations was formed. International law, human rights, and diplomacy gained a new, urgent importance. The idea of a shared responsibility for our planet began to take root in global thinking. The conflict also triggered the collapse of old colonial empires. Nations across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, fueled by a desire for freedom, began to demand independence. The war weakened imperial control and empowered liberation movements, leading to a new wave of nations stepping onto the world stage. Back home, societies were transforming from within. Women stepped into roles that had been denied to them for centuries. They filled factories, offices, and even joined resistance movements, proving their strength and capability. This shift was a powerful catalyst, accelerating the push for gender equality that continues to this day. Economies were also completely remade. Wartime production required mass manufacturing and logistics on an incredible scale. Post-war reconstruction reshaped both capitalism and socialism, creating the foundations of our modern economic systems. Yet, fear did not end when the fighting stopped. The atomic bomb introduced a new kind of terror, a global anxiety. For the first time, power meant the ability to destroy the entire world. This chilling reality changed diplomacy, military strategy, and human consciousness forever. The war also left a deep scar on our collective culture and memory. Stories of sacrifice, loss, and survival have been passed down through generations in films, books, and classrooms. History became a living warning, not a distant tale. So, when we say World War II ended, did it really? Its consequences continue to ripple through our time, shaping our borders, our alliances, and even today's conflicts. The modern world is built on its aftermath. To understand today, we must understand the war that changed everything. Welcome back to our exploration of how World War II forever changed our world. In the last part, we looked at the immediate aftermath. Now let's dive deeper into the long-term transformations that continue to shape our lives today. People saw firsthand how propaganda could fuel destruction, and they began to question authority and control like never before. This sparked a slow but steady rise in critical thinking as a defense against manipulation. This new skepticism played directly into the next global conflict, the Cold War. It was born from the ashes of World War II, turning former allies into bitter ideological rivals. The United States and the Soviet Union, once partners in defeating a common enemy, now faced off. Open conflict was replaced by simmering tension, nuclear threats, and a constant, chilling fear. The world had entered an age of permanent uncertainty. To manage this new reality, military alliances completely reshaped global politics. NATO was formed in the West, and opposing blocs emerged in the East. This divided the planet into two camps. The idea of national security changed from an individual effort to a collective one. Smaller nations found themselves drawn into these larger power struggles, unable to remain neutral in a polarized world. At the same time, science gained unprecedented influence. Governments, realizing knowledge was a strategic weapon, began pouring massive investments into research and development. This investment wasn't just for military tech. It accelerated everything from space exploration to the digital technology that powers our world today. The race to the moon and the invention of the microchip are direct legacies of this post-war scientific boom. The war also forced society to confront the invisible wounds of conflict. Soldiers returned home with deep psychological trauma, something we now call PTSD. For the first time, societies began to seriously understand the importance of mental health. This new awareness reshaped both medicine and social care, leading to better support for veterans and civilians alike. To prevent such a catastrophe from happening again, education systems were fundamentally changed. The goal was to teach future generations the true cost of hatred and intolerance, using memory as a powerful tool for prevention. The phrase "never again" became a core principle in classrooms around the globe. The physical world changed too. Cities that had been flattened by bombs were rebuilt with modern urban planning. New designs for infrastructure, housing, and transportation completely transformed city life. The reconstruction didn't just repair the damage, it created entirely new urban landscapes. The very shape of our nations was altered forever. As cities were being rebuilt, the media was evolving into an unstoppable force. Radio, newspapers, and the new medium of television began to shape public opinion on a massive scale. Information itself became a battlefield, with competing narratives influencing how people perceived global events. Controlling the story became just as important as winning on the ground. In the pursuit of justice, the war crimes trials at Nuremberg and Tokyo set powerful new legal standards. For the first time, individuals were held accountable for their actions, even if they were just following orders. The concept of justice expanded beyond national borders, establishing law as an instrument of global morality. National identities were also redefined. For the victorious and the defeated, the war cast long, complex shadows. Survivors rebuilt their national pride not through conquest, but through resilience. Patriotism became a more thoughtful, nuanced concept, forever tied to the memory of unimaginable loss and the responsibility to build a better future. The war also triggered one of the largest migrations in human history. Millions of displaced people crossed continents in search of safety and a new life. This led to a massive increase in cultural exchange, laying the groundwork for the modern multicultural societies we see today. The world became more connected, not by choice, but by necessity. Amidst all this change, people questioned their deepest beliefs. The sheer scale of the suffering challenged faith, philosophy, and ethics. New moral frameworks began to emerge, with a greater emphasis on human responsibility and our shared duty to one another. The idea of progress was no longer seen as purely innocent. It had to be guided by wisdom. Finally, the concept of total war, where civilians were on the front line, forced a rethinking of military strategy. Protecting civilian populations gained new importance, and the rules of engagement evolved. It taught us that with great power comes even greater responsibility, and that our very survival depends on it. World War II didn't just end, it fundamentally rewired the very meaning of victory. Winning was no longer about glorious conquest, it was about the immense, humbling task of rebuilding shattered nations and healing wounded minds. Peace stopped being a prize and became a profound responsibility. Think about that. Reconciliation replaced the ancient cycle of revenge. Economic partnerships like the European coal and steel community were formed, not just for prosperity, but to make future wars between members unthinkable. Trust, once a weakness, became a strategic necessity. The Bretton Woods Agreement redesigned the entire world's financial system to prevent another Great Depression, making economic stability a shared objective. The world was slowly, painstakingly, moving toward structured cooperation, and the horrific memory of genocide permanently reshaped our understanding of human rights. The Nuremberg trials established a new principle: protecting civilians was a global obligation. Silence in the face of atrocity was no longer an option. Bearing witness became a moral duty for all of humanity. Governments also learned a powerful, frightening lesson about the human mind. Propaganda was no longer just posters, it was studied as a sophisticated weapon. Mass psychology became a new field of power, and leaders understood that narratives could shape reality just as surely as armies could. Truth was no longer a given. It was something that had to be actively defended. For the generations born in the war's shadow, this reality was their inheritance. Their values were forged by loss and the monumental task of rebuilding. For them, hope wasn't a feeling, it was an act of deliberate resistance. The future wasn't something you waited for, it was something you built, brick by painful brick. Art and culture became the vessels for this collective trauma. When words failed to capture the horror, paintings, music, and literature processed the pain. Culture became a carrier of emotional history, ensuring the experience would not be forgotten. At the same time, the engine of wartime innovation was repurposed for peace. Technologies once designed for destruction found new life in civilian hands. Medical advances, pioneered on the battlefield to save soldiers, went on to save countless civilian lives. Transportation and communication networks, built for military logistics, connected the world like never before, reshaping daily life in ways previously unimaginable. The post-war world was a nervous one. Nations shifted their focus from outright invasion to deterrence. The atomic bomb meant that strength was now measured by the ability to prevent a war, not just win one. A fragile, terrifying peace was maintained by mutual fear. The goal was balance, not dominance. The world now believed that intervention could be justified to stop mass atrocities. Borders, it seemed, mattered less than our shared humanity. A nation's moral responsibility could now extend beyond its own frontiers. The veterans returning home carried the war with them, influencing politics and society for decades. Their experiences shaped a generation of cautious leaders. Their stories carried a unique authority, and their collective memory guided public policy. The world learned a hard lesson: hatred is a contagion. Division spreads faster than unity, and preventing it requires constant effort, education, and empathy. Peace, we discovered, is not a resting state. It is an active, daily process. Ultimately, World War II became the ultimate reference point, the historical yardstick against which all future conflicts were measured. Its lessons were repeated, debated, and sometimes, tragically, ignored. The war ended, but its history remains a constant, vital warning to us all. Thank you for watching.